Regularly scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park, Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Tinley Park to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, Lori, can you take a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Manny.
Present.
Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Shaw.
Present.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Present.
Commissioner Truxell. Chairman Gray.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Staff, we'll move on to communications. Are there any communications at this time? Okay. Move on to the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 4th, 2022 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, and then Commissioner Shaw, you had a comment?
Yes, there was a minor error in there. It shows that I was absent, which is the case, but it also shows I was present, which was not the case.
No, that is a trick.
I tried.
With that said, if you can make that adjustment, the motion was made by
Over there.
Commissioner Shaw and seconded by
Me.
Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of approving the August 4th, 2022 minutes with Ken's modifications, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We will move on to item 1. Item 1 today is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Catherine Whitman, property owner of 6862 Michael Circle, a substantial deviation from the Dunraven Place Unit 2 planned unit development to allow additions in the subdivision located at the northeast corner of Centennial Drive and Centennial Circle in the R6 PD Medium Density Residential District, Dunraven Place Unit 2 PUD. May I have a motion to continue the public hearing that was opened on August 4th, 2022?
Make a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is again open. I have received certification that the public hearing notice was published in the newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after staff's presentation. So at this time, staff, if you can please proceed with your presentation.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure, go ahead, Jim.
And this, on back on the first page in the thing, it said to allow, planned unit development to allow additions in the subdivision. Allowing addition, that isn't the issue.
It is, so it's kind of a two-part request. So additions for a PUD do need their own approvals, and then the other request was for the exception for the material, correct?
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
for a PUD, any building additions.
I thought that was already,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. This is for a requested building addition by petitioner Catherine Whitman, who lives at 6862 Michael's Circle. This is within the Dunraven Place Phase 2 subdivision development. You can see that highlighted with the parcels on your screen. It's at the northeast corner of the intersection of Centennial Circle and Centennial Drive. On the northwest would be the Part 1, Phase 1, which is not included in this petition request. The petitioner has come to the village and at the previous meeting provided a proposal. So we'll go through that in a little more detail. But just before that, I'll show you here of what this development consists of. It's 26 units. So they're duplex, so 2 per building. There are 5 on Michael's and 8 on John's. Development has some mature landscaping, common area with private lot pads throughout the development. There are currently 2 existing additions that are of a traditional sunroom look. Those are at 6844 and 6851 John Circle. Those properties received variations both in 2013. So here's a plat where you can see the outline of the developments. And here's an image of the entry to part of the development, so you can see the architecture and the general style of the buildings. So as far as the zoning is concerned, so this is part of a PUD. The underlying zoning is R6, medium density residential. And as far as surrounding areas, to the west is the Phase 1 of Dunraven. To the south are multifamily properties, and that's a R7 high density, and to the east and north are businesses. So as far as the code background and zoning, to note, the village does have masonry requirements. These have existed since the 1970s. It's to ensure a high level of aesthetics, durability. Masonry is also good at improving fire protection, that sort of thing. So this is part of the zoning code, as quoted above, which notes that the masonry shall extend to the uppermost portion of the first story of such dwellings. So I've noted and read some of the revisions as the petitioner came to the village for our last public hearing and has since modified her request. The nature of the site has an existing concrete patio area, as you can see pictured here, and the structure is this 1-story, so it's a proposed 1-story addition. We're noting that this is going to the property line. The patio currently is encroaching 1.5 feet over the property line, so it would be, as you see noted, visualized here, less 1.5 feet. So the previous proposal, the petitioner brought forth a request for vinyl siding. So the petitioner has advised staff that she would be proposing a thin brick to apply on this addition, which has 3 facades, and no longer proposes vinyl. However, architectural drawings showing a brick veneer have not been revised or submitted to the village. Here is the outline of where the proposed addition would be. So it's 12 feet 5 by 11 3/4. So it slightly protrudes from the rear facade. So you can see Michael's Circle down at the lower left of your screen. There's a common area that's around these individual properties. Here is an image of the architectural drawings that were previously submitted. So these show the vinyl siding, but again, that's no longer the request. The amount of the sizing and location of the glazing has not been requested to be modified. So that would be, as you see here on the screen, with the few windows, and on one facade to have a sliding glass door. And then as far as the proposal itself, the nature of the request per staff recommendation, this is a substantial deviation to the PUD, and this is for consistency of aesthetics and style, which is the intent of PUD's overall design and goals. Thin brick now meets the masonry code. In the previous submittal, that obviously would have been an exception to the zoning ordinance. And the windows, with the amount of windows to the percentage of the facade, one unique thing to note is that a sunroom is more or less an addition. Anything would be an addition. This just happens to be more opaque material than glazing. So staff has recommended conditions, as noted in the staff report. So on my screen, I have these conditions along with the open items. So the first would be to have the commission consider a condition of approval to require the exterior facade material at the subject property, 6862 Michael's Circle, to be first floor face brick, color matching the principal structure. And then secondly, to discuss conditions of approval to consider future additions within this PUD to either match the proposed addition at 6862 Michael's Circle or the existing additions at 6844 Johns and 6851 Johns in color, material, and style, with sizing and placement of glazing also to match, along with the caveat, no further additions shall be permitted. So as far as architectural standards, as noted in the staff report, we don't have specific standards for architectural design, but it's useful to consider the compatibility of the architecture, the type of materials, and whether or not it's cohesive to the overall development's design. So these salient thoughts to consider are the existing architecture, character and material quality, the longevity of it, the fit and compatibility in the neighborhood, and the materials themselves. And here is an image that shows a front view of a typical unit building, so 2 units. There's consistency in the overall development of this architecture and massing materials, style, elements, the gables, dormers, the white accent materials, the gray shingles with a reddish-brown brick. And then these are the 2 other sunrooms that are existing and were discussed at the previous Plan Commission meeting. They have the more traditional sunroom look. Nonetheless, they're additions. So they have nearly continuous framed windows with a slight variety between the 2. And just to lastly clarify, as stated before, the petitioner is proceeding with this request for a more opaque building because she does not wish to have a lot of glazing. So nonetheless, this is for a request for an addition. So I have the summary of those 2 open items on the screen, and the petitioner, Ms. Kay Whitman, is here. That concludes that presentation.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Ms. Kay Whitman, if you would like to would you like to speak?
Not really, no.
Okay, that's fine. With that, I will move on to the commissioners for comments or discussion, beginning with Commissioner Tibberts.
No comment.
Okay, Commissioner Manning.
I agree with the first summary. You know, we definitely want to have that brick match, try it as close as possible, you know. But number 2, I'm just wondering, you know, again, each person has their own home. Does it really have to match that? You know, kind of like, you know, corner them and making to select something. Just having, you know, government tell you what to build, you know, it's not resident friendly, but that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
So I just was looking for clarification here, if I understand the second part of the motion and recommendation. Are we creating a situation where in the future, somebody, like, this would only require administrative approval as opposed to having to go through, someone else would have to go through this process again? So they would just apply, receive administrative approval as long as it meets all the other requirements? Is that
Yeah,
right?
and that was a recommendation we had for the petitioner to request this overall, because that's the intent of a PUD, is to keep it kind
Consistent.
of, have it consistent and have an overall vision to it. So our recommendation to her was don't just request it for your unit. If it's gonna be okay for yours, the commission should be okay with it being kind of everywhere. So that's kind of where we've clarified that. So if somebody else there wants to put an addition on, they can either have it match the one that's been presented today by the petitioner or the existing ones, and that would be it. So that way you at least keep some uniformity. Now, somebody else could come back and try and ask for a 3rd one, but I think part of our intent here is to make sure we don't have 50 different.
Right. I think
looking.
there's only 26.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
correct.
yeah, and there's a phase two as well that kind of looks the same, so.
Right, yeah.
So that.
No,
I think the
with
intent's
this one,
try and
just
keep
rough
it
math, I
consistent
think we're,
there.
we'd be at 12% of them already, would have some sort of addition, so it, for me, it makes perfect sense because you're looking towards the future, trying to reduce, the red tape people have to go through. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
So-
You're creating a path.
She's kind of the first one in, so she's making, now going forward, nobody else has to do it, but it does, there's no point in having everybody else go back through this if everybody says, yes, this looks good. That was my recommendation, to just say,
Yeah,
let's cut this process out if everybody's okay with it.
that makes perfect sense. And to Commissioner Manny's point, I tend to be more on the side of, limited government intervention and, requirements. The only caveat to that I would say is, this is a PUD and it is a condo homeowners association. And, has the homeowners association, I didn't see it in there, has the homeowners association chimed in on style and all that?
Mhm. Yeah, they were at the last meeting as well, and
Okay.
the president was here.
I
to say
thought I saw that in the
Yep,
minutes.
and we have a letter as well.
Okay. I'm fine with all that. So-
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more comment based on, my disagreement with the item 2. It's just more, for aesthetics, me as an architect, I look at things and I'm like, well, yeah, I like it, but not like that. So I will have my own, I want it to look like this, it's gonna look beautiful, what have you, but, that's why I disagree with it.
If I understand what they're proposing correctly, that if somebody did want to go a third way, they could go through this process,
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Gaskell.
Well, I only have a question as far as, I'm all in favor of the brick, obviously, that's, but I have a question about the windows because I can't see what they are, I mean, it said they were gonna be bigger.
Same as last time.
Yeah,
Oh, they're gonna be the
essentially
same
this-
windows?
Yeah, same windows as what they had, basically the same everything they presented with the siding, except for it's gonna be brick there now, so it's still not really what you'd call a traditional sunroom.
No, no, it's not.
Can
It's
I
a
make
roof.
input? One of the other ones, I went over and measured their windows and they're the exact same size as mine, as the ones I want to put in. I don't have as many, but they're the same size.
Yeah, so that one's got a more continuous.
I think we're talking about the manner of
So
light,
this
not
has
the,
more of
not the
brick.
numbers of windows. I think we're talking about the quantity of light coming into the addition.
Yeah, so this is more of a kind of traditional addition, not.
Like a
really-
bedroom or something like that, yeah, den.
Which is, so going forward, you kind of got those options, like, okay, you get more of an addition and that matches in terms of the material, or you can go more glass and windows and do the more sunroom style. So it'll give people kind of those two options.
Well, the other two homes back up to the fence by Menards, and that's 6 foot and the bushes are higher. So they don't live in a fishbowl because there's no one behind them. Behind me is all houses, so it's like living in, the more windows you put in, you're like living in a fishbowl.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Gaskell. Commissioner Merrick.
So I guess the only, I'm happy with the brick too. The only question I have, the homeowners association was in favor of the other one, and we talked about building uniformity with the previous one. Have they weighed back in on this one? I'm not, I don't think that sways my vote, but they agreed to the last one. I would assume this one's better, right, because it's in more conformity? But I'm not sure that they've weighed in separately to this.
Yeah, I don't know if we got a.
Well, yeah, I can get another letter. Bob Maher, who's president of the association, was having some health issues and couldn't come tonight, but he is totally aware of everything that's going on, and so are the other members of the board.
Okay?
And
I-
half of my neighbors, because I talked to them all today.
Yeah, I think,
If you're worried about it, we can confirm it from a
Yeah,
staff
I mean,
level,
I'm
but it's
not really
moving in
worried
the
about
right
it.
direction, so.
This
yeah,
seems to
really.
be like more in conformity anyways, right, for me? But if we're locking other people into the future, into administrative approval for these two designs, you would think that the folks who live in that area would want to be on board with that.
I think if, as long as the brick, even though it is thin brick and it's just a veneer, as long as it matches the other brick, I don't see a problem with that. The only question I have is there any requirements as to the amount of light that, you know, number, the size of the windows, number of windows, or?
Not
There's nothing
from
in-
not from a zoning code, like there's building code issues like that, but this is gonna well exceed that, like doors and light and, so from a building code perspective, it's fine, and from a zoning code perspective, there's no,
What's the
Control.
building code?
like, there's egress windows and how much light you need and.
Right, and there's also, you know, a percentage, but, you know, what I see here, you know, knowing,
Yeah.
being an architect
It
myself.
looks like there's big
That-
enough windows for
that
Yeah,
egress.
this'll well exceed that, man.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was anything in the ordinance about the numbers and sizes. Okay.
Any other comments? Commissioner Hamilton?
As I understand it, we have the language that says no other ones will be approved, but people can always apply and ask for a fourth one or a fifth one or a 26th one. So that language is just sort of, hey, this is what we'd like to see, but you're always free to do whatever.
It's a clarification, so going forward, someone like, so yes, somebody can come in and always amend an ordinance, always amend a code.
Yeah,
But that's in there just for clarity's sake right now, saying these are the only two that can be approved. And maybe we could
Without this-
clarify
without
that it's like
right, right.
administrative.
If you want to go the fast track, you can do this, but if you want
Yeah,
to
it's
meet
just
the meat
There to kind
commissioners,
of
you can do that
clarify
too.
what we're approving today and going forward. But
Yeah.
someone can absolutely come back and say, I want to do a third one, and I want it to be hot pink, and I want hot pink siding, then they can ask for that. if they-
Because it's a free country, that's
Yep.
why.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with the proposals.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I got caught up to know your history, know your past. I do like the conversion to a room addition. I understand your plight. You don't want to be living in a fishbowl with all your neighbors watching. That's completely understandable. I think this is a good design. It meets the masonry code. I agree with staff's recommendation, just as long as you get the updated drawings and
I thought they would be here by now. I talked to the architect right after I talked to you, Dan, and I told him you wanted it the next week, but obviously.
All right, no worries, we appreciate your cooperation, and as long as Jim mentioned, the brick matches, the thin brick matches, I think we're,
Well, I went to Menards. It's not exact, but it's darn close.
right.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's all we really look for is something that when you look
You
at
have
it,
to stare at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
as long as it's reasonable to the naked eye and not something jarring.
And we'll confirm it with the building permit and stuff. We usually have a material spec on there in the sample, so we can confirm that it's
Yeah.
consistent.
And I do appreciate the support from your townhome association, the people that came out, but also your townhome board and president. You've done a lot of heavy lifting. So if the community wants to build a sunroom or build a room addition, you've kind of set the standard for them. So that leads us to that second part that I know Commissioner Shaw and Commissioner Manning mentioned, having a little bit of flexibility. You mentioned it too, Commissioner Hamilton, but they could always come back. But you did a lot of the heavy lifting, so we appreciate your time and patience, Ms. Whitman. But you did set the standard in with all the work you did. And hopefully it'll reduce the red tape for your neighbors going forward. But I have no other comments at this time. Is anybody from the public wishing to comment? Okay, then we'll move on. Since there's no further questions or discussion, can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay.
second.
Motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, if you can present the standards.
Okay, thank you. So up on the screen, I have the standards for a special use. I'll read through them in a notated manner. So the first standard, staff has drafted, these standards in red are different from previous public hearing standards. So the the proposed addition and existing sunroom additions will not be detrimental to public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. They're one story, and they consist of either mostly glazing or matching brick to retain a uniform design throughout the development. B is noting that the addition will be, in regards to the use and enjoyment of other property, and not diminishing and impairing property values. The proposed addition will be within each property's boundaries and surrounded by a common area. They'll create two options of uniform design under the current PUD regulations. And C, regarding to not impede normal and orderly development of surrounding property for uses permitted. The proposed addition will be attached to residences, protrude minimally. The overall boundaries of the development will not change, and additions can only happen on private lots, not common area. Additions are consistent with the PUD's existing development style. D, adequate utilities, access roads, and other necessary facilities are already existing. E, similarly, the ingress and egress are already existing. F, regarding other codes, the petitioner will conform to all other applicable regulations. And lastly, G, regarding contribution directly or indirectly to economic development of the community as a whole. The proposed addition will provide larger living accommodations and provide a more taxable value. That concludes staff standards. I have the motion up on screen.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Now at this time, may I have a motion for the special use for a substantial deviation to the PUD regarding this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant Catherine Whitman a substantial deviation from the Dunraven Place Unit 2 Plan Unit Development to allow additions in the subdivision located at the northeast corner of Centennial Drive and Centennial Circle in the R6 PD Medium Density Residential District, Dunraven Place Unit 2 PUD, in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt the findings of facts as proposed in the September 1st, 2022 staff report, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the exterior facade material at 6862 Michaels Circle shall be first floor face brick, color matching the principal structure in color, size, texture, and overall design. Number two, all future additions within the plan unit development shall either match the proposed addition at 6862 Michaels Circle or the existing additions at 6844 John Circle and 6851 John Circle in color, material, and style, with sizing and placement of glazing to also match. All additions shall be on private lots, and all other zoning codes must be met. No further addition designs shall be permitted.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, could I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes?
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So this item will go to the village board. I just want to make sure, Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. So Ms. Whitman, if you can get with staff on the details so you can attend, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
And that one will be should be the final meeting with the recommendation here. There's no presentation or anything, but we'll be in contact with Bill at the meeting in time.
So there's a chance I could get it built before it snows?
We could have the permit the next day, work with your architect to have them submit the resubmitted plans.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all very
Okay,
much.
have a good night. Okay, we'll move on to item 2. Item 2 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Dawn Bretchel, property owner, a variation from section 3.j fence regulations and section 3.h permitted encroachments of the zoning code at the property located at 19330 Fane Court in the R2 PD, Single Family Residential Brookside Glen PUD. This variation would permit the petitioner to install a 5-foot-high open-style fence to encroach up to 9 feet into the required secondary front yard located 16 feet from the property line. A variation is also required for the existing patio to be located in the secondary front yard where a patio is not permitted. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Tibbetts. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. I have received certification of a public hearing notice being published in the local newspaper, and anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after staff does their presentation. So staff, if you can please present at this time.
Thank you. So the existing site here is at 19330 Fane Court. It is part of the Brookside Glen PUD development. It's roughly southeast of 191st and 80th. It's a very large development, and here's an aerial that shows kind of the nearby area, so the close neighborhood. So the PUD, it is an underlying R2 zoning district. This home was permitted and then constructed in 2002, 2003. It is a highly irregular shaped corner lot with our GIS parcel estimate showing an approximate lot area of 15,569 square feet. So the property is a single-family residential home and has an existing concrete patio that you can see highlighted in red up on the corner of the home at the south. And the patio, is a non-conforming situation. It is, the corner of it is only, from the plat of survey, only 16 feet from the property line to the south along Brookside Glen Drive. So part of it is non-conforming. It appears to have been constructed without a permit. Staff tried to research to look for a permit, could not find one. The patio has some existing surrounding landscaping with a small tree in there. So here you can see a couple of views that tried to capture what that looks like. The patio, of course, is on the lower right, and the two photos are along Brookside Glen, looking both directions. So as far as zoning, the property, as I said, is in the Brookside Glen PUD with the underlying R2 zoning district. R2 does require that corner lots have a minimum of 16,250 square feet with 30-foot front yards. However, this is a PUD, so in certain situations, 25-foot front yard setbacks are applicable. So also this lot appears to be smaller because of the approximate estimate of a little over 15,000 square feet versus the 16,250. The regulations in the zoning code in our section 3J fence regulations state that fences are only permitted at or behind required setback lines and primary and secondary front yards. Technically, if this was just an issue about a fence, with it, if it were 5 feet, less than 10 feet, and wouldn't have any other issues, one could do an administrative approval, provided that it would not abut a neighbor's primary front yard. In this case, there's an existing patio, so there's actually two requests for the variation. Is for the property owner wants to have a fence that will run partially along this existing patio. And the second would be to bring the patio into conformance. So one for a proposed fence and two for existing patio. The nearby properties, so here are a couple of images of some homes with fences that seem to come out a bit close in the area. So as I said, the property is approximated at 15,569. It's larger than some interior lots, but overall not distinctly larger than lots in the nearby properties. So for comparison, I have a few of these up on the screen. 19327 Fane Court has an estimate of 13,932. 7709 Newfield, 15,480. 7724 Brookside Glen, 12,583. 19316 Fane Court, 18,422. So that is one of the interior lots that would be at the end of the cul-de-sac. So as far as fences, only a few of them in the overall area appear to have fences that look to come into secondary front yards, and there's a variety of fence types and styles. So you see both the open as well as some privacy. So as I started to allude to a moment ago, the request is for two variations. One is for a fence setback variation, and the second is for existing patio variation. So the fence is requested due to an existing physical hardship based on the unique shape and configuration of both the lot and the home. And the patio is simply because it's existing and to bring it into conformance. So here's a sketch that just shows where the patio is and where all of the proposed fencing would be. Here is the marked up aerial that largely shows as was in the staff report. I've just added in the dimensions visually to provide for a little more clarity. So there, as noted also in the report, the fence, part of it is going to be compliant with code and part will require the variation. So as shown in the staff report, what you would see in green is compliant to code. The code would, in this case, for the certain situations in Brookside Glen PUD, require only a 25-foot front yard setback. So the setback at the closest point would be 16 feet. The fence is proposed to wrap on one side of the patio, extend to the west, and then up to the north to connect to the neighbor's existing fence. So that's the southern part of the fence. And then there's a northern part. The northern part entirely complies. The southern part has part that does not comply. And then, of course, the part of the patio does not comply. So you can see with the dashed lines where those front yards would be scaled out. So at that 16-foot is the closest that both the fence and the patio encroach. So out of 25, that makes only a 9-foot encroachment. The patio also, just to note, it's 12 feet by 16.9 feet. And so you can see part of it is within that area. So it's a relatively minimal encroachment. If approved, this would not only allow for the construction of the fence, but for future replacement of that patio. Here are a couple of photos, also shown in the staff report. On the upper left, you can see the existing neighbor's fence and a little bit on the upper right as well. So the photo on the left is looking to where the fence would connect to in the middle west of the lot. And then the photo at the north shows the limited expanse of space between the home and the neighbor's fence, which is the west property line, as compared to the photo on the bottom, which shows from the corner of Fane and Brookside Glen, there's a large expanse of a large percentage of the lot's area that is restricted by the 25-foot front yard setback. So the request boils down to permitting a 5-foot high open fence encroaching 9 feet into the required 25-foot secondary front yard, and to permit a 202.8 square foot patio encroaching approximately 9 feet into the required 25-foot secondary front yard. I've also included here a slide that kind of graphically shows the different types of configurations of lots and the considerations that typically need to be made with corner fence variations. Considerations regarding the variation request. So just to note, it's a unique shape and configuration of both the lot and the home. The corners of the home protrude into the property line frontages. So that's unique, where in most cases it would be parallel to such. The home is also relatively close at its proximity to what would be the rear yards. This property is roughly triangular, with most of the frontage being this 25 foot, and on the one side that it's not is only 13.5 feet at the home's closest location to the west property line. There's thus limited available contiguous land area that's otherwise not restricted by the front yard, and as noted, it's not distinctly larger than nearby properties due to a variety of lot sizes and shapes and block irregularity. And other important considerations, the fence is not a visibility concern from intersections or driveways. So the fence at the closest, as I noted, was 16 feet. At the west property line, abutting the neighbor's primary front yard, a conventional interior lot, it's set back 35 feet, so it more than complies with the code there. Also, the patio, to note how it's situated, it squarely fits into the house's cornered recess there on the south. So that concludes the staff presentation. I have the standards up on the screen. Our petitioner, Dawn Brechtel, is here in the audience.
Okay. So does the applicant, Dawn, do you have anything to add?
Not unless you have any questions.
Okay, fair enough. We will go to our commissioners and see if they have any comments for discussion, beginning with Commissioner Hamilton.
The proposal looks reasonable to me.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, it looks like the house is designed to have a patio in the place where it's not supposed to have a patio, right? And the shape of the lot makes it impossible to do this any other way, so I'm fine with it.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
Well, I don't quite understand why the lot makes it impossible to, anyway, that's beside the point. I just wondered, who had that patio installed?
I don't know, we just,
A previous owner?
so, yeah, previous owner.
Well,
The patio was installed some time ago, and aerial images, it appears to show up somewhere between 2003 and 2005.
well, what I was getting at is that they didn't install the patio without a permit and then try to change the rules after they get caught. That was my whole thought, you know? No, I wouldn't want to penalize them for somebody else's bad deeds.
And I just know from a standpoint of records, things can get lost. So I know the staff report said there was no permit found. That doesn't mean there was no permit granted, but
That's what I always have to say, because I
Yeah.
can't say we have the best record system, so I can never guarantee it, because I never want that to come back.
Right.
Yeah, if we didn't see anything, there's always a chance there was something issued, an error or something.
and they got misfiled or something, human error. But with that said, we don't know. So with that, Commissioner Shaw, any comments?
Well, Commissioner Gaskell got actually to something that I was gonna ask whether you're the original owner, so I had the same thought on that. What I would say is that I myself tried to envision what a conforming fence might look like. And it would not, it wouldn't go with the spirit of the neighborhood, spirit of the house. It would kind of not even be functional. So for all those reasons, I would lean towards this. Plus, I recognize that this does represent a unique hardship. I would hope that in the future, if we were considering a building permit for a house like this, any logical person would say, look at that notch with a patio door. Someone's gonna build a patio. Right?
Instead of going, hey, we stuck this house in with the code, and like,
Yeah.
they're not gonna wanna add anything in the.
Because I looked at it, and the house itself hits the building line.
Right.
But any reasonable person would say, who's gonna want a dirt patio? So it's kind of like wink and nod. So I would hope we never do this in the future. But again, for all those reasons, this seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. I mean, the patio could have been a trapezoid there where angled off at the property setback, but, you know,
Yeah, you could very easily create a conforming patio
Sure.
also. But
and it would still serve its purpose.
yeah, any rational person would step out your patio door and go, what, this looks weird.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, you know,
So-
Aesthetically, it's off, if that were the case. But yeah, to your point, for sure.
Well, I think having a patio in the front of your house is kind of off too, you know, but that's neither here nor there.
True.
it gets to the unique size, shape, and configuration of it having effectively 3 front yards.
Right.
So, I mean, I myself have 2 front yards, so I can empathize with you there.
It is unique, that triangular shape, and then the way that house is oriented, 100%. Commissioner Manny, any comments?
No, yeah, I agree with the petitioner, proposes, you know, and I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm sure it wasn't a architect who positioned the house that way in that property line, because that's a
Probably a
developer.
planner.
No. So,
Seems like
yeah,
something we do.
that's, you know, that's strange.
It does rub against the OCD a little bit, doesn't it?
I think I'm gonna have to use this as a sample of what not to do.
Okay.
But
I'm
I,
sure it's a lovely house, though.
oh no, yeah, the house is right, but it's just, you know, because obviously you have to consider, you know, orientation, the sun coming in, so what do you want, you know?
Hey, if you
But
get
yeah,
rid
but,
of cul-de-sacs, you'll never have this problem. I'm just saying. This is all caused by a cul-de-sac.
Don't
Can I
say
vote in
that.
favor of that?
Yeah.
No, but I agree, you know, I almost proposed.
Okay. Commissioner Tibbetts?
I'm in agreement with the other commissioners.
Okay. And I have nothing else to add. I agree with what's been discussed by staff and commissioners. It is a unique property, and I think this will help out the overall functionality of the lot. So those are my comments. And I do like the fact that the fence will match the neighbors. If there's anybody else would like to speak at this time, Dawn, if you want to say, or anybody in the audience?
And really quick, I'll just point out too, they were amendable to making it essentially the least amount of a variation possible. So angling it back so it does end up
35, in
part of the
compliance.
fence that
Yeah.
is actually compliant.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and that's something I want to drive home that I think is important, not going, okay, well, let's go all the way out to the street because we have this weird situation. They kind of did the least amount they had to make it.
Right. We appreciate, you know, being flexible and working with staff to come up to a solution that everybody can get on board with. So with that said, if there's nobody else having further comments, then can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, could you present the standards?
Up on the screen, I have the standards for a variation. The first three require drafted responses, so I'll try to summarize them. So the first is regarding reasonable return. The proposed fence and existing patio both create a more useful property that utilizes limited available contiguous land area, otherwise not restricted by front yard requirements. They have a reduced degree of encroachment. Two, regarding plight in unique circumstances. The lot and existing house have a unique shape and configuration, not distinctly larger than nearby properties. A significant portion of the lot is within the 25-foot primary and secondary front yard setback area. Unlike other corner lot homes in the nearby area, the house is situated at angles protruding along the property lines and is in close proximity to its rear. There is limited available contiguous land area. Three, regarding essential character of the locality. The proposed fence location and existing patio both will not alter the essential character of the locality. The fence will connect to the neighbor's property's existing fence. Patio aligns with the house's recessed corner. There's a variety of lot sizes and shapes due to block irregularity. The 5-foot open-style fence is similar to other fences in the neighborhood and has been angled back to align with the neighbor property's front yard setback. And then fourth standard, I have up on the screen regarding additional considerations, and that concludes staff standards.
Okay, thank you, Lori. At this time, we have two motions on the floor. May I have motion number one regarding the variation for the fence for this item?
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner, Dawn Bretchell, a variation from section 3J fence regulations, the zoning ordinance, to permit a 5-foot-high open fence encroaching 9 feet into the required 25-foot secondary front yard. where fence encroachment is not permitted. At 19330 Fane Court in the R Residential 2 PD, Single Family Residence, Brookside Glen PUD zoning district. Consistent with the submitted plans and adopted findings of fact is proposed by the village staff in the September 1st, 2022 staff reports.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Merrick. May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, let me correct the record. I apologize. Motion was seconded by Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaskell.
It's still yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried for the fence variation. Now may I have the second motion, the variation for the patio for this item?
I would like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner, Don Brechtel, a variation from section 3H, permitted encroachments of the zoning ordinance to permit an existing 202.8 square foot patio encroaching approximately 9 feet into the required 25-foot secondary front yard, where a patio encroachment is not permitted at 19330 Fane Court in the R2 PD Single Family Residential Brookside Glen PUD zoning district, consistent with the submitted plans, and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff in the September 1, 2022 staff report.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, could I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So Dawn, this item goes to the village board, and it'll be September 20th, 2022. So if you can get with staff on the details, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Take care.
Have a nice night.
With that, we'll move on to item 3 for this evening. We're going to have an informal discussion of the plan commissioners regarding fence regulation review / ideas, active transportation plan review, and then last, APA Illinois training, the dates, or the date.
Yeah, and this is just kind of I wanted to put it on the agenda. I think it's something we haven't done with the Plan Commission. It's more been we bring projects to you and we let you then bring your input in. We're a little short-staffed now, so maybe that's part of why I'm going this route, just to throw some things out to you guys. And there's not an expectation you do this as your second job, but if you want to look into things, if you want to provide us some more feedback, I want it to be an open discussion with staff accepting that, as well as then the commission being able to debate it as well, to help give us a little guidance before we spend a bunch of time drafting a text amendment or changing a plan. I think you guys are the ones that are appointed with that hopefully that vision in mind. So with that being said, the fence regulations, I'm not looking for anything today, but the thought was, is there some specific ideas we can kind of go in with our code now and maybe make some adjustments that would help. So I know Commissioner Manny, this was a big one that you kind of wanted to look into. So nothing today needed, but going forward, if you go, hey, if we tweak this could really help resolve some concerns or issues out there. We can certainly add some of those suggestions in too. So the fence regulations, that's there because I know it still needs to be discussed. Quite honestly, there's limited staff time. I don't like using that excuse, but we have a lot of projects in right now and those have taken a little bit of priority. The ones that are in with actual development proposals. So we're gonna get to that one, but in the meantime, anything you guys have, can provide us feedback on or suggestions would be helpful. Corner lot fences are, been in this for 10 years, and I've dealt with it for 10 years. so-
Commissioner Shaw has some comments.
Yeah,
So anything you guys want to say, we can kind of leave it.
so this is one I thought about for a while, but based on many, many factors, staff, resources, not being the least of them, and also this not being a high priority. I'm just gonna say that up front, right? I wouldn't make a suggestion for this on its own. But if at some point we do decide to, crack the hood open and start looking at things and all that, I had thought for a long time in certain neighborhoods in the community, particularly like west of Ed and Joe's, the older neighborhoods there, even Parkside. If you look at the properties around the old Central Middle School, one in particular is a historic home on the corner there. I forget the name, but there's a marker.
Yeah, there's a marker.
It's an old Foursquare, I believe. And then there's another one out by, it has another historic marker. It says it's the oldest one in the community, and it was relocated. Both of those have examples of what you would consider Americana white picket fence, right? And we've even used several of those in village marketing to say, look at Tinley Park, it's a bedroom community, that sort of thing. Yet, you couldn't build those fences.
Right.
And so, to my mind, I think that a fence of that style could be appropriate in very narrow circumstances. And I think that that's something that it might be worth considering the principles and the circumstances around which we might want to carve that out, and, I don't know, there'd be a lot of parameters around that.
Sure.
So-
And we actually do allow that in the legacy district. So they did kind of, I think, when they looked at the legacy district, go, well, here's where these are kind of most historically even accurate. And so they kind of built that in there to allow those in the front yard, but that's the only part. So
Right,
there-
and the
there are other
legacy-
areas that we may want to extend that.
Yeah, the legacy district is very narrow and doesn't extend very far east and west of Oak Park Avenue.
Yeah.
And so the two neighborhoods, I'm thinking, actually, I think it's three, if you go over to, southeast by the American Legion and the Viking Hall and all that. There's only a handful of residential homes there anyway. But, you've got, I forget the name of the neighborhood west of Ed and Joe's. Is that Barrett Brothers? I always get those mixed up.
I don't,
But then again, like I said, Parkside. And again, it would have to be very narrowly crafted.
Yeah.
Parkside doesn't have sidewalks, and that sort of thing lends itself best where there are sidewalks, right? So,
Yep. And kind of the more, it's usually either an urban one or a little bit denser one, you tend to see. a little
exactly.
more. Probably.
Setbacks are a little bit.
Probably 90% or more of the homes in our community that probably wouldn't work, and you wouldn't go to Brookside Glen and start putting in front yard fences probably, so. yeah,
Exactly.
We'll keep that on the radar to say, hey, can we expect, is there other areas this makes sense in?
Yeah, and you would only want that in a very tight space. And again, because it brings that sort of sense of hometown feel, whereas the majority of our community really isn't that. It's more suburban kind of feel. So anyway, that's the one thing, and again, I would like to stress, not on its own, right? Only if we
Yeah, we're
decide.
not gonna come in just with the tax amendment. for this.
100%.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for.
And if you do, then it wasn't my idea.
Yeah.
What-
Yeah.
that
We're just
house-
looking for little things we can start building to tweak, okay, what should we look at here?
Just to piggyback on Commissioner Shaw's, like I think what I brought up with you, I think maybe on a sidebar with you, kind of like, when, this is in perspective of the old Tinley Park, or like you said, where you do have the picket fence and such. Like when when I see the code, you know, it's kind of like it blows away all of the all of Tinley Park, the older neighborhoods. If they want to adjust their fence or whatever, it's like, sorry, you don't have no fence no more. Because this code is rigid and it, you know, it's more cookie cutter, you know, suburban. So that's why, you know, when I see the petitioners come and they want to do something to their home, make it more of a nice gathering, keep your kids in, your dogs in, whatever, and we say no, I'm like, okay, who was the person who initiated, like, let's change the code, and did they have that in mind of, we're gonna ruin old Tinley Park's fences and not, you know, like in my subdivision, we have all that, we have fences to the corner, you know, for corner lots and, or such, you know, so my subdivision has that characteristic versus something like a,
Like Brookside.
Hillside Glen, you know, I mean, there you don't. So, yeah, that would be more of a sore thumb and such, so,
And both those are interesting because we'll have to look at it, but it's interesting because like you normally break down, okay, there could be different fence regulations based on zoning districts. I've seen that before. But I really haven't seen a zoning code. How do you choose sections of the village that get treated? So you could do that, but I just haven't seen it. So it'll be
Right,
a little
you
bit
know.
of research for both of those to say, we're not just saying in zoning district R2, you're allowed to do this. Now it's more based on, well, this
no, just
subdivision.
based on the, you know, the charm of that existing subdivision, how does that
So
look?
that'll be in,
You
and
know,
I'm
but
wondering
then-
if there's some older communities we can look at and see how they.
But I started my fence regulation notes, you know, that I want to share with you.
Good.
But, you know,
Yeah,
it's just.
and
it's
we're
early
open to that,
stages.
not just bringing everything here to the village, but
Mhm.
go ahead and send it to us when you have it, and then we can kind of sift through it.
Right, kick it
spread-
around, yeah.
Disseminate it to the rest of the commission as well.
Yeah, if you compile it and, you know, because I'm sure there'll be some redundant comments
Yeah.
perhaps, but compile it so that we're all at least given the same information so we can attack it in a uniform manner.
Yeah. So going forward, we can always revert back to this as well and keep discussing it until we get to a point where I have a little bit of a better feeling before we spend a bunch of time on it.
Jim had a comment
Well, I
earlier.
just had a question. We were talking about the house over by where Central Junior High it was at the time. Was it the judge's house or something back in there?
No, Judge Harper Hill.
Harper,
I
that's-
live in Harper Hill. It's not that one, but it's
That
it's,
house was torn down, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
What's the designation of that house? You say it's got a plaque. What's the,
I can't remember. I walk by
Is
it
it
like
Brueggemann?
every day.
yeah.
What?
Is it the
I-
Brueggemann?
What?
Is it the Brueggemann house?
Exactly. I knew it was with a B. It's that house, yeah.
And there are a lot
It's in our
of,
legacy plan, actually, because I know
Okay,
it
well-
calls out each one of those.
Yeah, I mean,
historic homes.
that's my point, is
Right.
that,
So
you know, we promote ourselves,
Yeah.
you know, with the charm, right? But
No, I
if
mean-
we
False advertising.
But we don't
e-
allow
even
them.
Discovered Tinley, Ron Centenni, he did a whole show. My wife watched it every time it played on the homes around our house that were built, you know, umpteen years ago, and they were unique and the stories behind them. So to your point, Ken, I agree, there's these pockets, right, that, are we gonna lose history, is something that we boast for modern conformity? I don't know, we lose something, right, we lose something of our history, but
And I
That-
think they
that's
did
very,
build
very-
that in the legacy code at least. They kind of at least caught it with that. Is okay. The whole thing was they were trying to keep a little bit of the heritage alive there instead of going, let's make everything modern and fit a typical zoning code. I think they realized, look, we need to keep this charm that old Tinley's got, and so
Yeah. So
fences, fences must have came up in that discussion because they did allow kind of either 3 or 4 foot high front fences there. as
It
long
would
as
take
they
a
were
lot of
modern.
work to craft it, and like I said, it would have to be principles-based, you know, so that we're not, you know, ultimately, you guys do have to have rules to work from, but we have to start from the principles. What are we trying to achieve here?
Yeah,
Right?
and I like to keep people out of here. I'm also less government and simpler is better. So like, I'd like to keep people away from you. If everybody agrees on the rules, let's change them. So that's what I'd
But
like to make it clear and a little.
But to that point, you need some standard so that you don't have just everybody, it's, you know, total chaos, so to speak, right?
And,
Or,
and I'll
That's
just
why-
throw this out there. You can draw a new line and somebody else is gonna want us to go over that line. so.
That's why I was asking about the
You're gonna always have
designation of
someone
that
here
house,
asking
you know,
for a little
what
more.
does the plaque mean? Is it's like a, is it part of,
National Historical Registry.
is it
No, I don't think it's
don't think
national.
so?
I think
The
it's
Finley
just,
Park?
yeah, because
Well,
we
in
only
any
have
case,
one
it's a
building in
historical
town.
site.
Yeah, there's only one.
Correct?
Yeah.
The plaque is denoting that as a historical site.
Yeah,
Correct,
landmark.
I
but,
think-
but Tinley Park Historical Society.
Right, but that's what we're concerned with. You know, we're not looking at Indianapolis here, you know, we,
No, but I just want to differentiate, because the Vote Building, Bang Gavel,
Yeah,
is the
right.
only one in town that's on the National Register.
but what I'm saying, if you wanna have some kind of a limit on front yard fences, you put that designation towards that. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the register, but if the village can say it's a historical site, you
Well,
know, that would definitely.
to
put-
my mind, that would be an improvement, it'd be closer, but I think it would be limiting, you know, still.
But that's what you
But
wanna
it'd be in the
do.
right direction.
You can't say, have everybody doing it, just because the neighborhood's
Okay,
old.
so let's be clear. I think it's worthy of discussion at some
Sure,
point.
sure.
But, you know, I don't want to take up everyone's time on that one narrow point. We're nowhere near ready.
Yeah,
for that.
I'm getting, it's just something to think about as we're looking at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just think like, this shows that there's a lot of things to kind of discuss and, you know,
But
hash.
that's why this stuff takes time, because when you go, okay, let's change the code, it's not just, hey, okay, let's just throw it out, or let's, so
Right.
that's why I'm kind of bringing this up, is if people have, hey, if we change this number from, you know, a 10-foot to 15-foot, that really solves some issues. From my perspective, the one thing I'd like to do is have our fences have we allow them to encroach into the setback, so a fence in R1 has 40-yard front yard setbacks, they're still 30 foot out from the property line, further from the street. And then R4 is 25 feet, so they're 15. I think the setback from the property line in, to me, makes more sense to keep it consistent across everywhere, and then you make sure, for example, there's 10 or 15 feet that you always keep between the property line and the fence. And that, to me, makes more sense, because that's more what you're worried about, is kind of the visibility, making sure it's set back. It's also easier for us to explain and people to understand, to say, you're going in from your property line, not, well, you live in the R3, so you have 30-foot setback, and so you can only do 20, but the guy down the street's in a different zoning district, so he can do it a little different. So like, that's one example I have of where my mind's always kind of gone of how our code can be simpler. We can maybe, that allows some more flexibility, and like, for an R1 zoning, they could then come out like 25 feet instead of just coming out 10.
Well, but with what you're saying, by articulating up front what the principle is that we're trying to achieve, when someone comes in requesting a variation, it makes it a little more rational for the commission to consider it, because we look up front and say, okay, this is a, technical violation here, but what they're asking for is reasonable and still achieves the same objective and all that. You know, they just don't, they're not asking for it because they want it. Right?
Yep,
I want it.
I want it,
I want
because
it.
I have things or stuff or a dog, yeah. Personally, I want it, yeah. So, just an idea there, I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas, but feel free, as those come up, send them our way, and we'll kind of revisit this once we have some more ideas for discussion, just to help guide us a little bit later with that. And if there's something quick and everybody goes, yeah, if we make that really quick change, that it'll help resolve it, and we're all on board with that, then that's what we can take that forward, so.
How do
The
you want us
act,
to email them to you? You want us to email them to just you, or?
yeah,
the
I mean,
entire
so don't email it to the group, because that's an OMA violation, which Lori's got more on that later. But you can always email them to me and Lori, and we can kind of disseminate them
Okay.
out, so.
Okay.
And we can always kind of compile some stuff then, instead of just sending individual emails and stuff like that. And then kind of the same thought with the active transportation plan. So this is one that I consistently seen. We have it on our website. Quite honestly, it's just sat on a shelf since I've been here and never used by staff, never used by Public Works. I really haven't even dove too far into it, but it's one of our least old plans, so, and I think it's something that this commission would have a lot of input and thoughts on. So that's one I just wanted to throw out too, to have you guys start looking at that. Let us know your feedback. Is it?
Could you explain what it is?
Yeah, and I haven't even dove into the details of it, but it's the plan for kind of like complete streets, active transportation, so walking, biking, things like that.
Dan
And
knows I email him all the time about this.
yeah. Yeah.
Send him notes, like, let's work on that.
Yep. So and that kind of triggered some of this stuff and I know Commissioner Shaw has brought stuff up plenty of times too. So it's one of those is, I don't need you guys to do extra work if you don't want to, but if you have some thoughts and you want to look through that, I think it would be beneficial for the group and for our staff to be able to say, if you go, look, this is terrible, I don't think this fits our community at all, that would be really good feedback. If you go, wow, this is a really good plan, it just needs some tweaks here and there.
So that's in our
That's
big
something we can
notebook,
read.
right? A big thick notebook?
It's not even that big, it was only like 67 pages, so. this-
No, I mean, but the notebook that we have that,
Oh,
It's got all
it
the
might have
stuff.
been in there, it might not have. It's one of those things that, like, it was done, it looks like it's got some useful information in there, but just, it hasn't even been passed out or kind of used. And I'd like to get that to the point that if we get buy-in from this group and the village board and Public Works, and it's something we can focus on when we have a project in here and somebody's saying, hey, I want to get a waiver for my sidewalk, and we go, look, this is a key point we have in our villages to get sidewalks in this area, or bike lanes. I think, again, it'll help Public Works when they're thinking about their streets, not just rebuilding them exactly as they've always been, which is typically for vehicles. To start thinking about pedestrians, bikes, other means of transportation. So, yeah, just throwing that out there so you guys can start, if you have interest in that, start taking a look at it. There's not a timeline on this, but
And
just.
Dan, I'd be happy to, like, I don't know the plan myself, but I do think we could, I mean, I moved here because of the train, right? And I run and bike a lot. And it strikes me that if you want more people to move here because of the train, you want to have more ways to get to and from the train that's not just in cars, even though that's a commuter spot, and to make it more pedestrian friendly. And some portions are, some aren't, and I'd be happy to meet with other people to go through that plan to get a sense of it as a smaller group of people. But I'm just not sure how to work with the folks in the village to take it to scale and to push for those sorts of things, right? But
Yeah,
that interests me a lot.
and ultimately, that's our job. And
Yeah.
we'll eventually have somebody else here, but I think some initial guidance on that from you guys, so that's, I'm looking a little more for the two-way feedback instead of us just going, here's what we think should change in the code. You're the residents,
just look
you're
at
the
the
planning
do's and
commission.
don'ts, basically.
And I'm sure Commissioner Merrick's not the only one, meaning like even if you put in, a request for feedback or some sort of quick form that to the residents where they can fill it out, because like you're gonna have intimate knowledge of the do's and don'ts. We have a guy at work who bikes to work, and he does, on my way home, I'll pass him, and he's taking a right, up Oak Park, and it's not really friendly for bikes by the train track at all. And I told him, like, if you ever need a ride, let me know, I'll throw your bike in the back of my van, and, especially if it rains, but it's dangerous. I think it's
And
dangerous.
that's where I think that plan too is there's a lot of grants available out there. When you have a plan like that that's actually being utilized, you can help
Yeah, cool.
focus that money then in the right place, and it helps sell it too. Is, look, we have a community that's come together and said, we need bike trails and sidewalks in these areas. And there's big gaps that we could do 100 feet of it every year, but potentially we can go then get a grant and just kind of finish it. So when that money comes and goes really quickly. So if you're trying to get the plan together for it, you're not gonna do it in time, but if we have that, it gives us that ability to go, where do we focus our energy and money at?
I know you're juggling projects and whatnot, but it's probably not bad to at least jumpstart something so we're ready if and when that grant money does become available, because I walk quite a bit, and I'm probably walk in the same neighborhoods you guys, and there's sometimes the sidewalk just ends, and then there's grass, and you gotta walk 2 houses down on the street, and then get back on the sidewalk, and so it's somewhat maddening, you
And
know?
it happens in residential districts, it happens in the 183rd Street, I see people walking in the street every day, like, cause it just goes sidewalk, no sidewalk, and I'm like, it's 183rd Street, we have hotels, we have businesses, we want that to be our, you know, visitor corridor, but yet you can't walk from the hotel to Speedway on a sidewalk.
And
or-
183rd
Come on.
across Harlem is like deadly.
And you
Yeah.
can't even
But-
cross Harlem
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
but people
crosswalk,
do.
right? There's not even an actual
And,
crosswalk.
and I've seen somebody jaywalk from the hotels, instead of going all the way to the corner, jaywalk across Harlem Avenue.
Yeah.
For,
Well, even
they
if
had
they
some
went to the
convention.
corner, there's no crossing there, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that's more or less dangerous, but that's the type of stuff that I'm seeing out there that made me also kind of go, this is important. And we do have money that kind of sidewalk gap programs, but this can really maybe help us
I'm curious, would that,
have those discussions with IDOT and everything else that goes into it.
would there ever be grant money that can be used for like a land bridge from those hotels on the west side of Harlem to get to the convention center in a safe way?
Maybe. And that's
Old-
the,
Old
like,
Plank
you know,
Trail.
it, how
Oh,
much
yeah.
does it cost is always a big question.
No, and I know
is there
that's a
alternative
pretty penny.
options, But, and it might be one where like the village can't outlay that money, but maybe there is a grant. that-
I know Iowa State just built a big bridge over their expressway leading to the campus, leading to the football stadium. And I think it was private donors, I think it was $2 million job or something, but it looks nice, but it's the functionality of getting a lot of people across, because not everybody that does come in for these conventions is gonna have a car, and does it really make sense to Uber and pay like 10 or 15 bucks when it's like a literally 10-minute walk if you had
Yeah.
the passageway there, so to speak?
And more people would then go to the restaurants, bars,
Yeah.
other things, right?
Yeah. Just, we just don't want to get an Amazon truck stuck going under that land bridge, right? But,
And that's one is even when they're rebuilding streets, I think we could be missing the boat on some stuff. So like when Cook County or IDOT comes in and actually reconstructs things, this is what they're looking for if we go, look, we need sidewalks, we need bike paths, we need bridges, they can plan around that. If we have nothing, they're just gonna reconstruct what's there, and I think we're missing. Those opportunities only come every 20, 30 years,
What?
maybe at most.
Is that why they're widening 175th Street by Oak Park Avenue? Just because they have money that they have nothing else to do with? I mean, there's no need for it.
For 175th Square?
176th Street to Oak Park Avenue.
I think it's,
175th.
they needed to reconstruct that because it's correct, because it's falling apart. But I
Well,
don't-
yeah, okay, they need to repave it, but they don't need to widen it.
Yeah, I don't think they're widening it like a true 2 lanes each direction. They're just widening it to have curves.
Well, they're taking our whole parking area by the Viking Lodge up in front of in front of the building.
Okay.
And I don't understand why. They got a right turn, they got a left turn lane, and they got the eastbound lane. And there's not traffic there. It isn't like it's a traffic
Yeah, I
hazard.
don't know
or
if it's, I'd have to ask our engineers.
You know.
I don't know if it's because they're doing curb and gutter and drainage improvement stuff. I'd have to look at the
But they're
plan.
moving the sidewalk from where it's at up towards the building, so we're losing that whole parking.
That's county, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a county
It's-
road.
It's county now, and then whenever they complete the project, we're gonna be taking it from them, not because we like to, but because that's the one way we know our streets can stay maintained going forward, because the county is not. Obviously, you can see 175th Street and where they think gets acceptable, so, we're taking that after they reconstruct it at that point. So. And part of Ridgeland, too in front of where DR Horton's going and the old Panduit.
Okay.
Anyways, just another thing to throw out there if you guys have time or want to spearhead something. We're looking for any type of feedback on that as well. So, lastly, I just had the APA training, so we sent that out to everybody. It sounded like both November dates work for everyone, right? Terrell?
I couldn't do the second one, I believe.
Okay.
But I can't remember now how.
17th?
I think we were kind of starting to lean towards the first one.
What's the first one?
The 3rd.
And what day? That's Thursday?
It's a regular Thursday meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
November
I believe
3rd.
that worked. The 17th did not for some reason, but I can't recall why.
Okay. So we're gonna get with APA then, try and finalize that date and let everyone know. It'll be a regular meeting date, start at 7, still do roll call and everything, but we won't have anything else on that agenda. If for some reason a project comes up that's a super priority, I'll just throw it out, we may try and ask if there's like a special meeting or something we can do on another date. And that could be any day, it could be a Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, we're trying to avoid it, and we may combine some stuff if we need to avoid it, so. But I didn't wanna add another date just because for this.
Dan, would we be in here or would we be in another? Okay, and then they would, okay.
Yep,
Tr-
it was
trans-
just bit, and they kind of, I don't know everything they go through, but they'll kind of walk through your regular requests.
Sure.
How you guys might want to be thinking, any questions you guys have about what you should be asking, what you should be doing, what should you be looking at. They'll have a good group here of people to kind of help you, including an attorney that deals with land use stuff pretty regularly.
Will it be the normal time, like 7, or will, okay, and then we'll go to 9, or do you know the timetable?
I think they said somewhere between 2.5 hours is the typical amount. It's somewhat what you guys may get to. So. That's all I have for that section of it. So,
Okay.
if you guys ever have any discussions or anything you want to talk about, just let us know. We can add them into the agenda.
Okay. Excellent, thanks, Dan, for bringing these up. We'll move on to good of the order. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
So we will be needing some forms and training for Ethics and Open Meetings Act from some of the commissioners. I can email or contact those commissioners separately, but basically the ethics is a yearly thing that needs to be done. Open Meetings Act, there's just a few of you that would need to complete that as well. So I'll be in contact.
Okay.
Otherwise, next meeting's September 15th, and we have items on that agenda, so. That's all I got. Obviously, Kimberly went to Woodridge, so she got a little closer to home. So I'm acting interim director currently, so any questions or anything you guys have, send it my way.
She didn't even come and say goodbye.
You canceled we canceled the last meeting where she could have said goodbye, and I knew about it the day of the meeting that we had the last time, so I couldn't say anything. So it is, but she is gonna miss everyone. So
She will be missed here as well, and, you know, we look forward to working you in her place, Dan, so congrats, and, yeah. Any other things for the good of the order?
nope.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask to receive comments from the public. Are there any members of the public present wishing to speak today? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to adjourning the meeting. May I have a motion to close the Plan Commission meeting?
So move.
Second? Either way.
Motion made by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned at 8:26 PM. Good night, everybody. Have a safe Labor Day.